Let's talk about pacifiers, toddlers, and the big debate that gets parents worried. Do pacifiers hurt my child's teeth, or do they actually help my child's development in some way, including maybe their mental health? And is it legit to give my toddler the PACI just because it quiets them down? Is there any downside to that? And am I going to parenting purgatory because I rely on that binky whenever we have to go for a ride in the car? And what about all these experts who seem to disagree? Dentists say one thing, pediatricians say another, infant and early childhood specialists like occupational therapists add a whole nother perspective. No wonder parents are confused. I was too. I'm here to break it down for you though in plain English and tell you why I'd personally rather pay an orthodontist than a psychiatrist later on in my child's life. Stick with me because this is about way more than a little piece of plastic in your toddler's mouth. This is about understanding your child's factory settings, the unique nervous system they were born with, and how honoring those settings can make the difference between calm, connected family life and years of unnecessary struggle. Let's start with the basics. Why do babies like pacifiers in the first place? Because sucking is one of the very first tools babies are given to regulate themselves. It's actually a soothing reflex. It's organizing for them. It literally helps calm their little nervous systems. That's why babies will suck on a pacifier or a bottle or their own thumb. It's nature's built-in reset button, and it's all connected to survival, right? Their instinct to nurse. Now, fast forward to the toddler years. By the time your baby turns 1, you start hearing the warnings. Take away that pacifier, it'll ruin their teeth. The dentists aren't wrong. I mean, extended pacifier use can change the way teeth come in, especially if it goes on past age 3 or 4. But here's the catch. Dental issues are fixable. Orthodontics exists. Braces work. Crooked teeth are not the end of the world, and many children will need them regardless of whether they used a binky or not. But psychological scars, a child who grows up without the right tools to regulate themselves, who is constantly in meltdown mode because their needs weren't understood or managed adequately, that's not so easily fixed. Here's how I like to say it. Orthodontics is a lot easier of a fix than psychiatry. You can fix an overbite. You can't slap braces on a neurological system that's been ignored, though. Besides, we do have some time to play with. I know there's a lot of conflicting info out there, but my review of the research and my clinical experience come down here. Try to wean them off the PACI, or their thumb for that matter, somewhere by the age of 3. And there are ways to do that I'll go over later. This is where pediatric occupational therapy, OT, comes in. Most parents don't even know what pediatric OTs do, but I wish every parent could have a consult with one. OTs specialize in helping kids with their factory settings. Every child comes wired with their own sensory profile. Some kids are hypersensitive to noise, to texture, to smell, to movement. Some kids are hyposensitive. They actually need more stimulation in order to feel organized and grounded. Neither is wrong or right. It's just how their nervous system is set up from the factory, how they were born. We all have our own sensory profiles. We grow into them, and they smooth out as we grow up and as our neurological system matures. But at birth and for the first few years, it's still a little rough and needs some support while things get regulated. Let me give you an example from my own house. One of my kids was incredibly hypersensitive to noise. He would startle and practically jump out of his skin at every loud sound. He couldn't yet habituate to loud sounds like most babies do. Most babies hear the dog barking a few times, get startled, and then eventually get used to it. They sort of filter it out. But kids who are hypersensitive to sound simply can't habituate yet. It startles the heck out of them every stinking time. And they suffer, and you want to protect them until their nervous systems mature, and they will, under typical developmental timeframes for typically developing children, as their nervous system myelinates, mostly over the first 2 years of life. That myelin, which is like the insulation laid down on our nerves. It's literally under construction, and the myelin is a buffer and makes the nervous system work more smoothly. Well, that myelin is still busy myelinating over the first 2 years of life, so your kiddo just has this underdeveloped system and can't deal with those sensory issues any better yet. So that's where the binkies come in, or the white noise machines, or whatever works for your kiddo, which will usually be temporary, but a wonderful support while they're still under construction, so to speak. Knowing your child's sensory profile, what they are super sensitive to, or what stimulation they need to feel better and more organized, helps you meet those needs to allow your child to feel more comfortable in their own bodies. And when your kiddo feels more comfortable, they eat, sleep, learn, play, and grow much better, right? So for my little guy who startled at every loud sound, a brilliant pediatric OT gave me the best advice. Get a cheap pair of kids' ear protection headphones, the kind you can grab at Walmart or wherever for concerts or sporting events, and let him use them at will when he felt overwhelmed, when he had to absorb a lot of loud sounds. That little bit of control for him was everything. So after daycare, he'd come home fried from all the noise. He'd put on his headphones for half an hour, and then boom, he was calm, regulated, and ready to rejoin the family. Before that, he'd melt down or shut down, he'd crash out, always after daycare, and none of us knew how to help him. With the headphones, though, he learned he had a tool to protect and regulate himself, and he could decide when to use them. That's how you learn self-regulation. That's resilience. And now, by the way, that kid is in grad school. Another one of my kids was hyposensitive to movement. She needed a ton of heavy play to feel organized. Running, climbing, spinning, especially on the tire swing, that's what did it for her. If she didn't get that movement, though, she was cranky, whiny, and hard to reach. But give her 20 minutes of big, heavy physical play, and suddenly she was sunny, cooperative, and flexible, and she would start talking a blue streak. It freed up her ability to communicate after a session on that swing. It was incredible. It was like magic. Again, that was her nervous system telling us what she needed. The occupational therapist, the OT, on the early intervention team helped us see that, and it changed everything. Now, let's bring this back to pacifiers. For some toddlers, that sucking motion is still one of their go-to tools for calming their nervous system. Literally an inborn reflex that helps them stay alive, right? It's survival baked in. But some kiddos just need a little extra input there. If you take it away too early, especially for a child who's already struggling with regulation, you're removing one of their only coping strategies. After all, our little ones can't yet talk it out or use our fancy grown-up coping strategies when they're feeling stressed. These sensory pathways are meant to be organizing for little bodies. And here's the thing, if you strip away their coping tools without offering anything to replace them, you don't magically create a more mature child. You just create a child who melts down more, who feels more out of control, who might even start biting, hitting, or otherwise crashing out as a substitute. Now, does that mean every toddler should keep their pacifier until kindergarten? No. But it does mean that we need to balance the risk of possible dental changes against the very real benefit of emotional regulation. It means looking at your individual child's unique factory settings. Are they hypersensitive and easily overwhelmed? Do they need that sucking input to stay grounded and mellow? Then maybe we keep the pacifier a little longer while we introduce other tools. Deep pressure hugs, safe OT designed chewy toys, sensory play or quiet time in a cozy corner. And by the way, OTs have great little baby and toddler safe toys and activities that you can offer to little ones who need that sensory input, stimulation, or calming. But between ages 1 and 3, I want you to think of pacifiers as less of a bad habit and more of a bridge, a tool your child uses while they're still wiring up their own nervous system. And that bridge helps your child build their coping and their learning foundationally. It's not just a crutch. And besides, a binky is usually much easier to give up than thumb sucking, right? Which is a whole different video. The thumb is literally attached to your child's body. That's why the PACI is usually much a smaller problem than thumb sucking. So when you hear people in the mommy group whispering, "Isn't he too old for that binky?" you can smile and think, "I'd rather have my child have braces one day than panic attacks later." Orthodontics is predictable. Emotional dysregulation is not. I mean, don't come at me, dentists. I love you. But let's keep all the domains of infant and child development in mind, shall we? Not just the dental lane. I say the psychological lane, the emotional regulation lane, is essentially important and way under-recognized. Now, as far as strategies to manage the weaning from the PACI, one great way is to explain to your toddler that the PACI can be used, but only when they're sitting on the sofa relaxing, in their crib, or in their car seat. That way it's limited use, used for decompressing, but you don't have to go cold turkey. Most toddlers will eventually get bored with a binky as they get older and their nervous systems mature anyway. Then you can experiment with dropping the use of the PACI more and more. I also recommend you stick with the original infant size pacifier, the smallest size that your child started out with. Don't size up to a larger toddler size PACI. Your child won't know what they're missing, plus it's less material pushing on their teeth. Plus, you don't need to deal with what size PACI does my child use now. Just keep it simple. The real takeaway is this. Parenting isn't one size fits all. Your child's factory settings matter. If your child is hypersensitive or hyposensitive to noise, to lights, to motion, ignoring that reality doesn't toughen them up. It shuts them down. And that shutdown can last a lifetime. But when we tune in, when we work with our toddler's nervous system instead of against it, we're not just helping them now, we're giving them lifelong tools for resilience and emotional health and regulation. Pacifier or not, that's the real win. So if you're wrestling with the pacifier question, don't let fear of the orthodontist be your only guide. Think about your child's unique wiring. Talk to a pediatric occupational therapist if you can, or book a session with me. Try different strategies to support your toddler's neurological regulation. And remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about connection. It's about helping your little one feel safe, seen, understood, and equipped to handle the big, overwhelming world. Because in the end, the parenting goal isn't a perfect smile. The goal is a child who feels at home in their own skin, who knows how to soothe and regulate themselves, how to handle stress, and how to connect with the people who love them most. That's the real beauty of understanding your child's unique factory settings. And if your toddler's binky or PACI or anything else is worrying you, and you'd like more of my help, let's work together. Check out the link in my bio or the description below for my special going on right now, which includes a one-hour private consult with me to answer all your parenting questions and dilemmas. Since we're on a school break, now is a great time to grab a spot in my calendar. And if you're super busy, as I know parents of toddlers are, I also work asynchronously. So if you sign up, we can swap voice or video notes, texts or emails if you want. Zoom and phone calls also as well, whatever works best for you. I'm happy to help.